Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
And how are you enjoying your Depeche Mode this week? It's Depeche Mode, the podcast. I'm your host, Jon Justice. Thank you so much for checking out another episode this week. TalkShowNerd at gmail.com, and we have some listener feedback to dive into a little bit later on in the episode. Have you heard of Rate Your Music? I had not heard of Rate Your Music until I sat down to work on the show content this week. Rate Your Music, often abbreviated RYM, is an online encyclopedia of music releases and films. Users can catalog items from their personal collection, review them, and assign ratings in a 5-star rating system. The site also features a community-based charts that track the highest rated releases. I have in front of me the top 50 Depeche Mode songs according to Rate Your Music. And what I like about this list is that it's kind of a nice little overview of popular Depeche Mode songs. I think if any of us were to put a top 50 list together, it probably, when you get down to, I don't know, I'd say like 30 and down, they're probably going to end up varying quite a bit. And that's why I kind of appreciate a bit of the insight. See what I did there? A little bit of the insight of a general overview of the most popular songs by the fans. So I just thought for the episode this week, I would run through this particular list. And now it's interesting because they have the vote count, and it really varies throughout the list. The ratings are consistent. When you go to the very top of number one, it starts with a rating of 4.7. I think 5-star would be the highest, and said that as much in the description of what Rate Your Music does. Whereas the number 50 song sits at a 3.87. And yet when it comes to the ratings, they're all over the map. I mean, you've got 3,000 votes in some places, 676 in others, 191. But I overall think that the way they ended up working this out was via the algorithm. And of the votes, they were able to go and tabulate an entire rating. Very similar, I would think, although probably using AI and again, algorithms, to the way that I had done the album ranking several months back. So I just thought it would be fun to go through this list, and if you want to send me, I don't know, you don't have to do your 50, but your thoughts on this list, and I'll comment a bit on the songs. I'd love to hear from you, as always. TalkShowNerd at gmail.com. I'll say up front that my commentary on this particular list is really going to come down to sort of the surprise that I have that certain songs ended up in the top 50 at all, considering the sheer volume of Depeche Mode songs that are available. So, starting off at number 50, we have One Caress, then we go Condemnation and Get the Balance Right. And I'll stop here for a second. If you had asked me, would Get the Balance Right, Condemnation, or One Caress end up on a top 50 most popular Depeche Mode songs, I would have given you Get the Balance Right, but I would not have put Condemnation or One Caress on there. Neither would I have put Love Thieves, New Dress, and Sacred, which come in at 47, 46, and 45, respectively. Now, granted, I love Sacred, and I enjoy the other two tracks. I don't know if Sacred would have landed on my top 50. Maybe. Number 44 would, though, of Blue Dress. 43, Dangerous. That doesn't surprise me at all. 42, John the Revelator. If only because of its inclusion in the set list for the Memento Mori tour. If it hadn't been for the inclusion in that set list, I would have been somewhat surprised that it landed on the top 50 list. Coming in at 41, Lie to Me. Not surprised with that. 40, Waiting for the Night. Followed by Just Can't Get Enough. I'm shocked that that's actually down at 39. Coming in at 38, Mercy in You. Would not have put that in the top 50. 37, A Pain That I'm Used To, not surprised. Master and Servant, Sweetest Perfection coming in at 36 and 35. Rush at 34, a song that doesn't get nearly enough credit in my opinion, and also should have ended up on a set list since the Devotional tour. That's a banger of a track, and one that I think the band could have easily revisited and fit into any one of the tours that followed Devotional. Coming in at 33, Clean, followed by Higher Love. I wouldn't have put that in the top 50. 31, Things You Said. 30, Nothing. 29, Suffer Well. 28, Fly on the Windscreen, Final. Coming in at number 27, A Question of Lust. Coming in at 26, and the first entry from Memento Mori, Ghosts Again. And I'm going to chalk up the lack of Memento Mori songs on this list to it being the most recently released album, because I'm also not seeing anything on here from Delta Machine, am I? I do not believe so. Or Spirit, for that matter, which actually, no, it doesn't have me. We have Ghosts Again, so this was a current list. All right, sorry, I'm kind of just speaking my mind here and forgetting that I'm actually hosting a podcast. Coming in at number 25, Barrel of a Gun. Coming in at 24, and I actually think this is an appropriate spot for what is one of my most favorite songs, and that is Here Is the House. 23, Useless. Coming in at number 22, People Are People. At 21, Home. Coming in, and we're into the top 20 now. We go A Question of Time, Behind the Wheel, I Feel You, But Not Tonight, Halo, Shake the Disease coming in at number 15, Black Celebration, Everything Counts, Blasphemous Rumors, Strange Love, and now we are into the top 10. And of the top 10, none of these surprise me that they are in the placement that they are. Coming in at number 10, we have Stripped. Number 9, World in My Eyes. 8, It's No Good. 7, Walking in My Shoes. 6, In Your Room. Okay, let me back up, stop, pause. Kind of surprised that In Your Room was over Walking in My Shoes on this list. And honestly, I'm surprised that Walking in My Shoes isn't higher up on the list. Now, I'll get back to that in just a moment. Top 5, Personal Jesus, Precious, Policy of Truth. Depeche Mode does well with their P songs. Number 2, Never Let Me Down Again. And yes, coming in at number 1 is Enjoy the Silence. The only reason why I bring up that Walking in My Shoes at number 7, I'm surprised it isn't higher to a certain extent, is that seems to be the kind of pinkies up isn't the right word. When I talk with casual Depeche Mode fans, like those who may have gone to a concert or maybe never have gone to a Depeche Mode concert, but they might have a Depeche Mode album, they're at least aware of Depeche Mode and they have some Depeche Mode on a playlist. Walking in My Shoes is typically the track that those real casual Depeche Mode fans will mention when they find out that you are a massive Depeche Mode fan. As if to say, I gotcha. Yeah, I know you're a hardcore Depeche Mode fan and you've seen the band 34 times before and met them a few times, and I'm with you. Walking in My Shoes is a great track. That seems to me to be the song that people typically go and try to, like, Depeche Mode song drop. There you go. Depeche Mode song drop, Walking in My Shoes. Have you had that happen before? I would be interested to know that. I'd like to know your thoughts on this top 50 Depeche Mode songs according to Rate Your Music. Just what your overall thoughts are. I just thought it would be a fun little exercise to get an overview of what everybody thinks. But I also would like to know, what is the Depeche Mode song that other people drop to you to try to tell you that they are also aware that Depeche Mode is a great band, even if they may not be as hardcore of a fan as you are. TalkShowNerd at gmail.com. Yeah, I like that question. I look forward to hearing from you. All right, let's get to some of your listener feedback this week. First off, From the Baltic coast, Stephanie writes, "Hey, John, thanks as always for your podcast. Keeping up the effort to keep us entertained. The podcast with Rob Rome about merchandise, in the attachment that she sent, you can see an H&M, at least in Germany, a T-shirt with the Violator Rose and the Depeche Mode Violator-era lettering. For my taste, it should have been black. That's it from me. I hope you're doing well. All the best from the Baltic coast." Yeah, I've actually seen quite a bit of commentary around the fact that H&M was selling this one specific tannish, off-white, egg-colored T-shirt with the Violator Rose and Depeche Mode on it. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And us as Depeche Mode fans, we love to see Depeche Mode out in the real world. As a matter of fact, somebody had sent me a message about a song that had popped up recently in a show that they were watching. So we always love to see when Depeche Mode's out in the wild. Easy Tiger UK writes, "The worst song from the last tour was Speak to Me. It was dropped," and I asked last week about the songs that the band had started the tour with but eventually went and dropped. It was dropped as it really did not work. I'm amazed they tried to do it live because it doesn't even feel like it could work live. It feels like a Dave thing with all the arty-farty stuff he likes. On another subject, we recently had a Get the Balance Right birthday. I love that track. I don't think the band were ever proud of it, but I don't think they ever played it live. Yeah, my impression of dropping of Speak to Me off the Memento Mori tour was more of just switching it out for another track off the album and less about the fact that it wasn't working live. I mean, it sounded fine live to me. I just wonder if they weren't getting the vibe and it was slowing the pace down too much. So I guess 6 one, half a dozen the other. I'm kind of describing essentially what you're describing, as opposed to what I was talking about on last week's episode with the song like I Feel Loved, where I think that was straining Dave's voice too much, which is why they ended up dropping it on the Exciter tour. Jason writes, "I thought the story about Toast Hawaii was a thing of legend among Depeche fans. It's always been reported to be Fletch's solo album of covers. Fletch even went and named his record label after it. I don't think I mentioned that last week. I knew that was the case, and it might have just slipped when I was covering those particular stories that I had found on the Alan Wilder Back to Depeche Mode Facebook page. Fletch, let's see, and it's often mentioned, sometimes jokingly, sometimes not, about releasing that album through his label. I think there's even a filmed interview with him discussing it. Yeah, I just had never heard that story before, and especially the story about how Alan Martin and Fletch had gone and made like their own track of albums before. So it could be rumor. It could be the stuff of legend. Thank you for sharing that, though, Jason. I appreciate it. Hugo Ravolo writes, "From the Sounds of the Universe tour, Peace was dropped early on. In Sympathy was only played a couple of times as well." Yeah, I was aware of In Sympathy, but not Peace. But yeah, you are right. Fragile Tension was only played once. Master and Servant dropped during the U.S. leg. From the Delta tour, Secret to the End was dropped early on. In Your Room was only played a handful of times, and Soft Touch Raw Nerve was dropped early on as an alternate to Goodbye. Also dropped, but brought back for the shows that were filmed in Berlin. I never realized they did Secret to the End live. And that's not a bonus track on the Live in Berlin, right? I need to go and look at that. So I paused the show briefly and went and looked at my my little Live in Berlin box set. I say little, but just because it's a small box set. Yeah, and I didn't see Secret to the End as sort of a bonus track on there. I was completely unaware that they actually had performed that live at some point in time. That is brand new information. I do have some further thoughts on Delta Machine. I'll share them here in just a moment, but I want to wrap up Hugo's email here. From the Devotional Tour, Something to Do was played once in Brussels in 93. Clean was only played with Alan on drums a few times during the Exotic Tour. Policy of Truth with Alan on drums was dropped on the U.S. summer tour in 94. From World Violation, Little 15 acoustic version was only played a few times. The Music for the Masses tour. An even longer extended version of People Are People was dropped after a dozen or so shows. The version on 101 is the shortened extended version. It Doesn't Matter was only played a few times on the tour. Pipeline was dropped from this tour after a few months of being played. That, for some reason, I distinctly remember that. Pipelines is such an anomaly to me. In that it's one of those songs that I don't go back and listen to, but man, it sticks out. That song is in that era when I first discovered Depeche Mode, and I heard it, and it was so unique and different from anything that I had heard before. I mean, even beyond Shake the Disease, which still had that pop convention to it. You know, happy, sad music. Pipeline was just in a completely different vein, and yet still as alluring as all the other songs that I was discovering at that time. On the Black Celebration tour, Here Is the House full band version was only played at the first few shows of the tour. Why was this dropped? Yeah, I have no idea. I want to get back to Delta Machine, and maybe I need to sort of hammer out my thoughts on this for another podcast, or perhaps go back and listen to the episode that I did about Delta Machine, because I'd be curious if any of what I'm going to mention right now ended up in my commentary about that album. That album is such a weird one to me. I'm sorry, I'm actually in the middle of the podcast. I'm putting away some of my Depeche Mode items that I took out from my thing right here. I suppose I could have stopped the show, but I like to record it live, so you get to have this little diversion for a moment. Delta Machine is such a weird album to me. I think it probably ranks close to the bottom of my list. And again, I'd have to go back and look at the ranking that I did. There are songs on there that I enjoy, and it's one of those albums when I start listening to it, I'll go ahead and listen to it beginning to end. But there are just aspects of that album that don't feel Depeche to me. And there's a couple of tracks on Spirit that are the same way. I can't say that about other albums. And that's not a dig on those particular tracks. It's just a matter of those songs strike me different on that album. And I don't know if I've ever really put my finger on it. Secret to the End is one of those tracks. Like, it's Depeche Mode, and it's got everything in it that you would typically expect from Depeche Mode, but it hits differently. Like it was another band doing Depeche Mode. I'm going to spend some time on that. First, I'm going to go back and listen to the other podcast, because maybe hearing myself talk about the album before will help me sort of formulate my thoughts about that particular release. It just the email got me thinking about them doing it live, and I have a hard time seeing that song translating to a live venue in a positive way. Perhaps that's why they went and dropped it. So, relatively short show this week. There's a lot going on in my world, man. But I want to make sure I get my podcast in every week. So, hope you enjoyed the top 50 list. As always, email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. And if you like reading science fiction, check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. I've been doing a re-listen of the audiobooks. It's been a number of years since their release. Actually, since the release of each of the album, I haven't audiobook. I haven't gone back and listened to them, and I've been doing a re-listen. And as I listen to the audiobook of the series, I want people to read them, because I think they're fun. And if you like science fiction, I think you'll enjoy them. So head on over to Amazon.com. 7 books in all in the series. They're available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, Kindle Unlimited, and as I mentioned, the audiobook. If you like your science fiction to be epic, filled with some romance, action, indirect and direct references to Depeche Mode, a lot of different music Easter eggs from the 80s through the 2000s. I made that a whole underlying theme within the story of the characters and the tales. It's set in 2172, but they're a fan of the music that I grew up with. Very much inspired by Ready Player One. While Earth faces its end, the fight to rule the stars begins. follow pilots Taft, Keitha, and their crew on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for their future far from Earth. Again, Amazon.com, search for EMBARK, E-M-B-A-R-K, and Jon, J-O-N, Jon Justice, and you'll find it there. Thank you so much for hanging out with the show this week. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope wherever you are happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Hello, this